Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Today I am responding to a viewer request, and specifically that request was, tell me what to do, how to write to a parole board so that I can perhaps stop someone's ability to get out on parole early. So this is an interesting subject because a lot of what we deal with in the law is criminal behavior. And criminal behavior is thought that if you offer someone early release with monitoring, that somehow you reduce the amount of crime that individual might be liable to commit. However, the problem is that doesn't necessarily always equate to the truth, and many times people who recommit these kinds of offenses, or any kind of offenses, tend to be the toughest nut to crack, so to speak, in terms of rehabilitating people. So it is quite natural for someone who has been harmed by a criminal to want to have some input into whether or not that criminal gets released from jail. And so I thought this would be a good way to show you how, if it was me and I wanted to stop someone from being let out of jail, what I would do. Here is my Google search for the Indiana State Parole Board. As you can see, I just went to Google and typed in Indiana State Parole Board. And this is the result I got, the Indiana Parole Board. This is the Google result for the Indiana Parole Board, which is under the the Indiana Department of Corrections. And when you click on that link, here is where it takes you to the Indiana Parole Board, and it talks about who the board has jurisdiction over. And in addition to that, it lists the members of the commission and what their relative roles are. So if I wanted to write to the Indiana Parole Board, what I would do is I would direct my letter to this lady right here, the Gwendolyn M. Horth, who is the chair. She's been a member since 2015, so she's got a lot of experience, and her term expires in July of 2024. And so here is a big clue on the Indiana Department of Corrections website. It says, the Indiana Parole Board is available to assist victims who have safety concerns regarding an offender's parole release. If you have safety concerns, you may contact the Indiana Parole Board at 317-232-5784. In other words, it doesn't say you can write them a letter. It says you can call them, but the problem with calls is they don't leave a record. They don't leave a document in the file, and you may indeed wish to do that. So you probably need to get the address. It's probably at the bottom of the website, and you can get the address and send the letter and make it to the attention of Gwendolyn M. Horth in our example here. So let's suppose that you were a victim of an armed criminal invasion, and you wanted to write to the Indiana Parole Board to prevent the armed felon who kicked in the door to your house and fired a shotgun blast up into your ceiling and stole money and property from you and scared you nearly to death. Let's suppose that you wanted to oppose that individual's parole. So how would you go about it? Well, the thing that tends to impress this particular parole board, we know from their website, is safety concerns, meaning, is it likely that this person is going to go back to doing exactly what they have always done, which is rob and hurt people? And we don't know that for certain, but what we can do is we can marshal some statistics. So again, I went and Googled the issue of whether or not armed offenders had a high recidivism rate. And I found this particular article. It's from the United States Sentencing Commission, and it says that violent offenders recidivated, or basically reoffended, at a higher rate than nonviolent offenders. Over 60%, or 63.8%, of violent offenders recidivated by being rearrested for a new crime or for a violation of supervision conditions. This compares to less than 40% of nonviolent offenders who were rearrested during the follow-up period. Well, to me, I would think that a letter to the Indiana Parole Board might start out this way. I realize, Ms. Hort, that you have a significant amount of experience on the parole board and that you have doubtless seen many criminal cases over the years and have been instrumental in helping people achieve their goals of becoming rehabilitated and productive members of society. It's important when you're writing a letter to get something done to give some kind of credit to the person that you're writing to let them know that you think they're a reasonable person, that they are somebody who's going to, do the right thing for the right reason. And so I would start off with something like that. And then I would move to, in 2017, John Doe kicked in the front door to my house. My 13-month-old son was in a baby bouncer at the foot of the stairs. And the moment that this man kicked in my door, he fired a shotgun blast up into the ceiling. And there were pieces of gypsum and drywall that fell on my poor little child. And he started crying. He was terribly frightened by the shotgun blast. And then he came in and he put the shotgun to my head and said, "Give me your ATM card and your ATM code, and if you don't, I'll kill you, and if you give me the wrong code, I'll kill you." And then you would go through all of the things that you testified to. In most cases, when people have committed these kinds of violent offenses and they have been found guilty, there's been an appeal filed. So here's another thing that you can do. You can go to the appellate courts. You find out what appellate court his or her case was decided in, and you ask to get a copy of the transcript out of the file. Not of the whole trial, but just of your testimony. And so you can attach that. Now, the parole board should probably have something like that in its file, but it's nice if you can attach it and you can outline where you told your story about how this man kicked his way into your house. Then, after you get through talking about your particular circumstances and why you might fear this individual, that's when you get into the information from the Sentencing Commission. You cite the key figures from this particular study. Over 60% of violent offenders recidivated and are being arrested at a higher rate than nonviolent offenders. Violent offenders recidivated more quickly than nonviolent offenders. Violent offenders recidivated for more serious crimes than nonviolent offenders. All of these things, violent offenders have higher recidivism rates than nonviolent offenders in every criminal history category. So all of these kinds of facts and figures as documented by the United States Sentencing Commission, all of these things would be very important to a parole board in evaluating whether or not to allow someone out. And when you offer this information to them, it makes a difference. Now, will it affect the ultimate outcome? Maybe not. But at least putting these statistics in there has the effect of making your voice clear on this particular issue. Parole boards have a job to do, and the job is to pick out of the prison those offenders least likely to reoffend and grant them some kind of grace for having been good boys and girls inside the prison. And most people who are in the prison can't wait to get out because prison is not a nice place. There are a lot of bad, mean, ugly people there who do bad, mean, ugly things to everybody else. Prisoners get punished in prison not so much by being confined, but by being confined with people who do bad, mean, ugly things to them while they're in there. And so people really appreciate the opportunity to get parole and are oftentimes willing to conform their behavior to the norms of society. But that's how I would go about doing it. I would find the address for the parole board. I would find who is the chairman or the chairperson of the parole board, and I would write specifically to that person. I would send the letter certified mail, return receipt requested, deliver only to the addressee indicated. And I would send that, probably at least 2 months, 3 months before any chance that that person would be let out on parole. And I would make sure that I included my telephone number, my email address, and the best times to contact me if anyone at the parole board wanted to talk to me about this particular individual. And I do that just because they could very well call and say, hey, we've talked to this individual. He's very much interested in getting out on parole. He's indicated he has no desire to reoffend. He's indicated he has no desire whatsoever to go back to prison. And so for that reason, we think he's a good choice, but we're willing to hear you out on this. So would you come and address the parole board? And if they do that, you should absolutely take advantage of it. And remember, these are just normal people. They're not anything special, and they're not individuals that, have the power to harm you. And so you shouldn't be embarrassed or nervous about talking to them. You should go in, tell them exactly why you think this person shouldn't be released, and then when you're done, ask them to consider what you've said. Don't tell them not to release him, because there is just an oppositional defiance, I think, in boards and people who are empowered to make choices, that if somebody tells them not to do something, it grates on them and they go ahead and do it anyway. So just ask to have your thoughts and your feelings considered in the determination. And even if they wind up releasing the offender, there is a better than average chance you'll never see that individual again. And it's up to the courts, of course, to catch him if they reoffend. It is important, I think, to have a voice in that system as the victim. Another potential source of help is if the county where where the offense was prosecuted has a victim's advocate. In other words, somebody who helped you prepare a victim impact statement for sentencing. If they have that, they may be able to tell you exactly how to go about addressing the parole board. So all of these things are my suggestions. I have never had the occasion to actually write to a parole board, but if I did, those are the things that I would do. I would back my analysis up with facts and with research that I found on the internet, and I would cite it, I would send it certified, and I would always accept an invitation to address the parole board if one was extended. If you have any questions on this, please feel free to drop me a comment below or email me at the address above, and I'd be happy to take anything further, any additional suggestions or any additional comments or questions. I'd be happy to deal with those. Thank you so much for watching. Do something kind for somebody today and meet me down here at the beach again tomorrow. Hey folks, please excuse the interruption, but let me ask you if you would, if you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you would, hit that like button and maybe even leave a comment. That tells YouTube that this is a valuable video and they'll refer it to more people. It helps me out a lot and I appreciate it. Thank you. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.